Hi everyone, this is Marty, and in this video I'm going to give you an introduction to Schema. So now there are many applications that can do concept modelings in what I call general arrangement, and Schema is similar to those. In the ones we showed you in the first video today, the reason we chose the three that we showed, Spaces, Snaptrude, and Schema, are the ease of use that they have. And Schema is similar in that it can perform the kind of urban design site and massing study cases that these tools were designed for. And it can also perform the sustainability analysis, and we'll talk about that in some detail. And it can create multiple options easily, just like those other tools, with different massings in each option. It works on the cloud and it's highly collaborative. So in that way, it's similar to these other general arrangement tools. And so, all of these have a certain method of making a massing and being able to divide it up and then doing these analysis to allow the person to study the project in context. Now, where Schema is unique is that it can create multiple uses and solves in each option, meaning, and for instance, in an apartment building, you would specify the unit mix, and then, especially in the AI-driven tools, it would generate hundreds of potential massing solutions for that unit mix. Schema is different in that it lets the architect define the massing, and then you can play with different unit mixes that fit in that massing, and you can save each one as an option. So a little bit different approach with potentially some more creativity in it. To go along with that, you have pro forma metrics. It also has, I think, and this is very unique, layout catalogs that can use your existing Revit data as input. Now, you don't have to do that. Schema can work just as an urban design tool and just as a site feasibility tool, just like those other general arrangement tools that we discussed. But here's where you get some real power, that if you are able to bring your existing Revit ingredients that you have on your servers for the last 10, 15 years, Schema can use that in a catalog that will drive those cubes in the blocking and stacking, so that once you have a blocking and stacking arrangement, any of those cubes that were associated with high LOD Revit data can be reconstituted back into that Revit data. And so from that, Schema can produce from the blocking and stacking not only the blocking and stacking cubes, but also complete LOD 350 data for the building in Revit. That is, as far as I know, the only system that does this, and this is why we thought it was so unique to the point where we partnered to get you an extended trial for it. Further, while we're going to show you an apartment building, which is pretty common for these general arrangement tools, the methodology in Schema is extensible to all building types. So, the idea is that this can work for healthcare projects and work with complex programs with multiple departments, with, many different variables as far as adjacency in both vertical and horizontal directions, and priority of adjacencies, and a lot of other things like that. So the methodology is what you're seeing is the tip of the iceberg. And then, of course, the last piece is that when we do produce that LOD 350 data in Revit, it's fully editable in Revit for construction drawings. And I have validated the quality of that data import-export, and I can tell you that it is flawless. So in this next 10 to 12 minutes, wish me luck, I'm going to try and show you everything I just covered. First, I'm going to show you urban design by creating a new site and several massing options. Then we're going to go into sustainability analysis for those massing options on the site, using several different engineering simulations. Then we're going to show you how you can do some multiple options and multiple different owner pro formas for some of those massing options. And then I'm going to get into BIM catalogs and actually generate a BIM LOD 350 data that would go into Revit. So let's do all of that in 10 minutes. That should show you how easy this is to use. Here is the sign up for the extended trial if you want to follow along with me. If so, just pause the video, click that link, enter your data, and then you'll have an account. You can follow along with me. All right, assuming you've done that, I will move on. Let's dive into Schema. So first thing you're going to see is a projects folder, and if you've got a new account, you're not going to have anything here. So the first thing you're going to do is go to create project. I'm just going to type in the same address here that we have for this project in Charlotte, North Carolina. That address was given by a friend of mine, and so I'm not exactly sure whose address that is, but we're going to demolish whatever's on the site there. Not the most sustainable, but this is just an example. So 2108 South Boulevard in Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, of course, you're seeing Tower of London. This, if you don't have location services turned on, it's going to default to London. So now what we do here is, now this works best if you have a mouse connected to whatever laptop you are running it on. So there's a zooming and panning done with the mouse buttons and the scroll wheel. So I'm just going to let you experiment with those. In this case, now I'm going to define a site. So I go up to the left-hand corner here, I click Site Boundaries, and I will just start sketching the site. So we'll start up here. We're just going to move over and just pick it real quick. The point of this is that you can bring in, a picture or another thing that represents a site survey if you need to. But I'm just quickly sketching this out. Now what we're going to do is, it's the next prompt it's giving us is how much of the context we want. And once we click create in the upper right hand corner, what it will do, what Skema is going to do, is it's going to take all of the blocks that we see here in OpenStreetMap, because it's pulling from OpenStreetMap, and a terrain model that Skema has, and it will create the site context for you. So I'm just trying to get enough around here so that when we look at it in the editor, we have some site context around here. If you pull in too much, then you might have to wait for all of it to generate. Just use your judgment. So now we're gonna create that site. It's going to bring it up here in the Schema editor, and you're gonna see we've got some things on here, and we also have some topography here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some of this context, and I'm just going to get rid of it because we don't want these buildings. We're just going to do a new building. We have our site topography. You can see there's some slopes and stuff, which will be more apparent once I do some massing. So now the first thing I'm going to show you is that you can do, if you go up here, you'll see that there's a street tool. This street tool is really more like a right-of-way. You can use it for site setbacks. You can use it to reserve a place for an actual street or other circulation. So I'm just going to put a street in here just to show you how it's done. For instance, it's snapping, as you can see. I'm just going to pick on this site boundary, call it done, hit enter, and now it will make a street for me. And what I see is the center line, and I'm actually seeing the edges of the street with the site topography. So that center line is sort of the cord that connects the 2 points I picked. This is the actual street edges. And what it does is it divides up the building plot. So now I have 2 building plots, this one and this one. So this gets interesting in masses, because once I have multiple building plots, I can just use some of the automatic massing tools in order to come up with some options for these building plots. Now, if I pick, I can just free draw a massing, and I'll let you play with that yourself. I'm trying to do an awful lot of these in one go. What's interesting is I can go right to, if I click one of the building plots, right to a topology, and this will fill it with buildings. So if I wanted to fill this one just with the most boring buildings ever, I can do that. Or I can do something more interesting where I go around the edges with a predefined setback. I can increase the setback to something more reasonable. When I click out, it will recalculate where those buildings lie. So maybe that's one set of buildings I'm interested in. I have the ability to use Voronoi as a fill type. I can do this type on this one as well. If I unclick it, then it will get rid of those buildings there. So let's just say I'll leave these buildings here. I'll fiddle around with their uses later. I'm going to now take a different type of creation methodology, which is a polyline. For an apartment building, the polyline works very, very well. So I'm going to say, if you're getting used to Schema, use the polyline as one of your first examples. And so now, again, you're going to see some snapping. I'm just going to lay out an L-shaped building. Again, you'll see I've got some 90-degree snapping there. And we have, you're seeing feet. It also is obviously metric, but right now I'm just showing feet. Now, you can see that I have some topography here. I'll talk to you a little bit about that, how it sets the building height and what happens below grade in a minute. For now, I'm going to click this building and I select the building and I can add segments to it. So right now I only have 2 parts here. I can add segments to get more parts, right? I can just keep adding segments. I think what I'm going to do is just making it simple. I'm just going to go with 3 segments, so I have an L-shaped segment in the center. And I'm going to lower this so that most of these are just 4 stories. And I can, so I can set the floor height to something reasonable, let's say 11 feet. And then we're sort of at our starting point. And in this mode where I've got a polyline, I can still mess around with the polyline. I can take, this piece and shove it this way, and I can take this piece and I can shove it that way or this way. So now I have, a polyline building, and I can still manipulate it like a polyline. Once I am done with that, if I select the building again, you'll see I have this button called Bake. Once I bake this polyline, then I can start editing each of the blocks individually. So I'm going to choose to bake this guy. And let's show you a little bit more about snapping. So once I've baked it, I can individually select the block, one floor, or if I tab, I can go back to the block, and if I tab again, I can go to the whole building. So I have this ability, just like in Revit, between multiple selections. I can go to the block, I can tab, I can get the whole building. If I go to the side, I'll get one floor, and I can get a floor, I can get any of the floors here. That's the top floor. If I tab, I get the block. And I'm going to tab once more just to get this whole block. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this block taller, just here. This one I'll go up a floor. This one I'll go down a floor, just for fun, so that you can see this. So now let's say this is going to be residential. This one is going to be residential. And over here, this is going to be commercial. So now you can see, what's going on here. Now, the one thing about this is that because we have topography, we don't want the building getting buried in the ground. I'm going to select from the block back to the building. And I should have a basement area available. Or is that by block? Let's do it this way. Yeah, so basement is available. However, if I want to set essentially the ground floor elevation, I can hold Control and multiple select each of the blocks. Then I can take the elevation where it says basement available, and I'll put it in here. And I'm just going to say 68 feet because I kind of have tried this before and I'm close. Let's say 72 feet. Whoa. Hold on. 72 feet. All right, so that gets me something reasonable. What it's doing is it sets the building height from the corner point at the highest elevation of the site. All right, after recording the engineering analysis, I realized if I put this in here, this video is going to be 45 minutes long. So I am going to take the engineering analysis that I showed and turn that into a bonus video and put it on the page. So if you want to see it, you can. In this case, I'm going to move on and show you then how the blocking and stacking work. So if I click back to the building here, I can apply what's called a building concept. Now, in your Skema account, you're only going to have what is the default option, which is this one, which is the Creo building catalog, and it's going to produce an apartment building for you. Now, in my catalog, I have the Blue Ocean, a couple different Blue Ocean catalogs. So now, if you were an architect using this, you could have your own catalog of your building concept that came from your Revit models. In this case, I'm going to apply the low-rise concept that we have for this, and what it's going to do is it's going to do a best fit of what I've got from in my catalog that has been pulled out of Revit and turned and abstracted into these cubes. So now you can see it fits what it can inside my massing envelope, because that's the way that this packing algorithm works. But here's what I meant about being able to change the unit mix. Right now, it did a solve for 40% 3-bedroom units, 30/30 1 and 2 bedroom units. I'm going to say, in my market, so I can save this. Let's say this will be one option. So let's save this one as my 3-bedroom option, and we'll say 3-bedroom mix. Now let's duplicate this and change, when I go back to select the building here, let's change this so that we've got a lot more 1-bedroom than we have 3-bedroom. Let's keep pumping that up, and I'll move the 2 beds down a bit. Yeah, so now we're going to see a lot of 1-bedrooms, which are these orange cubes here. And if I wanted, I could even go, so I could save this as my 1-bedroom mix. And I can go back here and keep messing around with these to my heart's content. So if I pick the building and I pump up the 2 bedrooms, you're going to see the number of blue units go up. And in this case, it's going to take the number of 3 bedrooms down a lot. So let's give the 3 bedrooms a little bit of joy. Actually, yeah, I mean, if I don't want hardly any 3 bedrooms, I could just take them out of there. Let's do something like this, and you'll see that I have mostly now 1 and 2 bedrooms with a few 3 bedrooms. So let's just go with this for now. So what we have is we have now this layout in our massing, which is from the catalog that we've loaded in, that has our different layouts for actual apartments in it that we got out of Revit in this case. Now, this methodology, I'm just showing it for apartment buildings, but in the future, what we're doing is Skema is going to be applying these to other building types, like healthcare facilities, schools, other things like that. We're just demonstrating this with apartment buildings so you get the idea. So now we have a blocking and a stacking. 2 things we can do. We can bake this, and then we can even play around with the locations of the units. So if I wanted to, for instance, move a 3-bedroom to a corner or do something like that, I could do that. The other thing we can do is we can take this level and turn it right into a building, as I described. And I now have this side. So let's duplicate this. So that's my 1-bedroom mix. Now this is going to be my 2-bedroom mix. Or actually, this is a bunch of them, so let's just call it optimal mix. And I'm just doing 3 of these so you can get the idea as I move around from the different options. If I go to key figures, you'll see I now have the different mix summary, and I have a report for this unit mix here, what I call the optimal mix. If I go back and I pick a different option, I now have a report for this unit summary, right? And if I go back to my 1-bedroom, I now have a report for this unit summary. So this is what I mean about the pro forma metrics and how you can optimize it around different scenarios. And in this case, I could then take this and do a report. It also have a pivoting function in here. So if you wanted to do some pretty interesting reporting with summing things up, you can do that directly here in Skema. So now let's take this last piece, is we're going to turn this into an actual LOD 350 BIM model. And the way we do that is to pick the whole building. And in this case, we're not going to have an editable model here in Skema. There's a back-end system to this called Creo Design, where we could get into that editing of the LOD 350 model that we produce here. But in this case, what we're doing is we're just going to take these cubes in our blocking and stacking and generate the building that results from swapping them back out to their full definitions. So if I click LOD 350 preview, it's going to go into the catalog, it's going to take all these cubes, it's going to fetch all the Revit data that matches that cube, and then it's going to put it into place and give us what is, in this case, a fully resolved building. All right, like magic, we now have an apartment building. So this is what you get from having the Revit data loaded for those. So, basically we went in, we got Revit data for the apartment layouts, put them into this catalog, and then that generated that building. And so, of course, we could do this for all the buildings on the site. The idea is, as an architect using this, is going to have different catalogs for different building types. You could have an office catalog, a hospital catalog, a residential catalog. So in any case, the idea here is that there's an intersection between the blocking and stacking and mass and what you're doing in an urban design context setting, and then the ability to actually create the data that you need in order to produce a project, get drawings, be paid for actually producing the work needed to build the building. So that's the idea here behind Skema. One other thing we can do, just for the purpose of visual, is we can, for this particular building, when we hide cover, what it's going to do is turn off the massing so we can just see the resulting building. And then if we want to set up a camera so we can see what that looks like, or take this into another program, we can do that. Now, if I select this building again, turn these options off, it takes me right back into massing. Takes me right back into the blocking and stacking, and I can still continue to play with it, and I can still switch out the unit mix, then see what that looks like as an LOD 350 preview. The other thing I can do at this level, both at the massing level and at this level, is that if I hit this button up here, it will export just the cubes to Revit. So once you have the LOD 350 preview, that won't get generated to Revit, but everybody can just take this level of resolution and export this to Revit. And what it will do, let's save the changes, and then it will send us an email with a link to the Revit file that's generated from this particular mix. Now, what you can do is you can take this out into Revit and use something like Veris now to come up with exterior concepts for your owner, and get into a situation where I can take the data that's produced here and just apply Veris in Revit to give me something that looked like what I did with Midjourney yesterday. So I will probably do that as a bonus video also, since this video is getting long enough that I'll do that as a separate bonus video and probably put it on the Blue Ocean blog. So you'll be able to take a look at blueoceanaec.com and go to the blog link, and I'll put a post up there with that bonus video of taking the blocking and stacking cubes out into Veris to do owner look and feel studies from this data. All right, so with that, I'm going to go back to my cheat sheet. Again, we've arranged a extended 60-day free trial for you for Skema. Go through this sign up link and you can get that. I will caution you that it's a small team. There is a help function here that if you use this, it's going to go to the actual small team, and they're probably going to be inundated given the number of people in the challenge. So please be patient with them as they try and handle any inquiries that you have. And do take a look on the Blue Ocean blog for some of the bonus videos about Skema that I will put there, just to try and mitigate the amount of support inquiries they might get on this piece of software.